that when my wife really needed me,
yes,
and our children needed us,
yep,
growing, I dedicated probably more time to the business than I should have given my family. And now, in retrospect, you can't go back. It didn't make it didn't make our children any worse. They still grew up with good values because I think their mum and dad gave them good values, especially their mother. I'm very grateful that, my wife's been a very good support for me. But, you do have regrets.
This week we sat down with Albert Pisconeri. Albert is a director of Pisconeri Fine Foods and Wines, a third-generation family-owned business operating in continental foods, wines and kitchenware, servicing everything from supermarkets to cafes to restaurants and everything in between. In this episode, Albert reflects on his 47 years of involvement in the business and stresses the importance of family, social life and health. As Albert is entering the next phase of his career, we discuss succession planning, work-life balance, and the transition into retirement. Enjoy this week's episode of It's Never About Money. So I'm joined by Albert Pisconeri. I'm excited to have you on, Albert. Just as a starting point, how are you? How's life at the moment? I know we've been through a fair few lockdowns, so how are you feeling?
Well, I'm just recovering from a shoulder surgery. So it's 3 weeks in out of shoulder surgery. So it's a long road back. I've got to, rehab exercises to get through. But yeah, look, we've all gone through some serious tough times over 220 and 221. We all thought it was going to ease off a little bit, but I think it's gotten worse. And we won't see any progress until probably mid next year, where, freight and getting stuff out of Europe has been affected severely across the board. Yeah. So, and even more so Melbourne and Sydney, where they've been under lockdown and now they're coming out of it. And I think, if it's not that, it's floods. If it's not that, it's fires. So
yeah, we can't seem to win at the moment. That's for sure.
You can guarantee a rail derailment. At Christmas. So things don't surprise us much these days.
No, so. They don't. I think it's probably important for our community and our listeners to sort of learn a little bit about yourself and your family background a little bit, so that we have a bit of context.
Well, this could take hours to talk about my family background, but originally my uncle came out to Australia by chance. He'd finished serving the war in Africa and was meant to go on a boat to another country and ended up in Perth. So looking around, I'm here. He was taken in by Wesfarmers, which was a manufacturing group, and he was a very good welder and mechanic, which opened up doors for him. And he invited his brother after the war in late 40s to join him in Australia and start a business. And the business developed from a corner deli to a coffee lounge, which was the first coffee lounge in Perth. And they introduced all the niceties of Italy, of the migrants during that era.
So what sort of coffee were they drinking back then?
Well, the coffee was short blacks, cappuccinos and all that sort of stuff. That was in 1952, 53.
Yep.
I came along in 51 as a toddler, but they'd started this business as a deli and introduced Italian products to the Italian migrants who were missing their loved ones and missing their home specialties to come to a country which just had sandwiches and Vegemite and probably a little bit of cheddar cheese slapped in the middle of it, sort of thing. That's not degrading what they were eating, but basically the Italians wanted something of their own. And fortunately, my father and my uncle were able to produce that. That carried on for about 10 years, and the shop got bigger and bigger, and so did the coffee lounge, and the work got harder and harder. So fortunately, they were introduced into wholesaling by an Eastern States group that wanted some distribution in Perth, and not just in a continental deli. It was more to redistribute amongst users in the Perth metro and country. And from there, it just went from strength to strength. We started wholesaling in 62, and we've been in wholesaling ever since. We've become some major importers of major lines out of all over Italy, mainly out of Italy.
And your customers are specifically sort of like specialty
Continental
cafes?
Delis, delis, cafes, restaurants, sandwich bars, large hotels, liquor stores, that sort of thing. So we've got a broad range of product between dry goods, freezer goods, chiller goods, and wines and beers. And the strength of that has just come through over the last 10 to 15 years, where we've got very specific type beers out of Europe. And the eating habits and the drinking habits of the Australians have certainly changed over the years. A lot of things have developed without going too much into it, but you know, the novelty of drinking an imported beer was a lot different from just drinking the standard beers that were presented to the public in those days. And I'm talking about the 50s or 60s.
I'm very interested, Albert, in the in terms of your observations through your business journey and the change in the consumers' attitudes to the products you do sell. Like, what are the observations? You've just made one around beer and so on.
Well, my observation was back in the 50s, excuse the vernacular, but you were considered, you know, a big drinker if you drank beer, and wine was hidden. You became a wino if you didn't drink, if you drank it. These days, if you drink beer, you're a drinker, and if you're drinking wine now, you're joined another class. It's, you know, it's interesting to drink, you know, a range of wines, whether it's imported or even local. But the discerning customer or the discerning drinker has certainly changed his way of dealing with, and also the introduction of new types of wines, and a range of wines from all over the world have introduced new ways of drinking into Australia. And that's been noted from that point. That was my observation. My observation as well is, you know, the introduction of things like eggplant and sun-dried tomatoes and provolone, Parmesan cheese, anchovies, a lot of, and pasta. Pasta has become very prevalent, you know, in every restaurant you go to. You know, you've always got 3 or 4 pasta dishes or whatever, ravioli, lasagna, all those sort of things. So
we really do take it for granted, don't we? Because I mean, you know, I don't see, I've in my lifetime never seen a world without it. I am of a Egyptian heritage, so we do have a Mediterranean influence in our family, so that might be part of it. But you know, obviously, the Australian culture has been significantly shaped by you know, this sort of the migration and the businesses that are being created, which have that culture through them.
It certainly has, and it's look. The Italians don't take all the credit, because all the nations, including the Chinese, the Malays, the Indians, have all had a part in introducing a wealth of variant foods into this country. Because, as you know, it may have started as the typical convict back in the 1700s or whatever, but they are all originally English. So when the migrants arrived after the hard times of World War II, for whatever reason, and then in even beyond, you know, the refugees, et cetera, so everybody found this country to be what they called, you know, sorry, it just escapes me now, but it was like heaven on earth sort of thing, you know. They couldn't believe what they were confronted with, you know, the beaches, the sunshine, the clear skies that we all always take for granted because we were born here. And you look up, and Italians have visited here, they've looked up at the sky, says, God, that sky's blue. Because back home, it's not, it's grey. You know? So they really envy, you know, the people that are living here in this country, and even the migrants that have arrived and have become Australianized in their own ways.
It's very nice to hear, Albert, you know, specifically, you know, at a time where we probably, there's, you know, with all the lockdowns that are going on and people, you know,
quite frustrated with that sort of thing. To be grateful for what we do have is very important, and I think you bring that to light there.
I think it's made even more evident now during the last couple of years.
Yeah,
that you don't take anything for granted.
No, that's true.
And if you go into lockdown, you suddenly realise how good it is out there, or what you've been doing to make ends meet, or whatever industry you're in, or if you're an accountant, or if you're a lawyer, or whatever. But the common factor is food for us, and food has been our not so much our saviour, but we've looked at it as an avenue for my family to be entrepreneurial enough to understand that the Italian coming from Italy was looking for something. The fact that everybody else joined in is just the icing on the cake, basically.
I'm really interested as well, Albert, this idea of, how the pros and cons of, well, let's call them the pros and the challenges of the Italian heritage coming through the business. Could you give us a bit of an idea from your point of view as to what you see as being the advantages and some of the challenges that you had to face?
The challenges have been that my father and his brother, with very little education, were not really business people. They understood people. They could talk to people. One was very mechanical. The other one was basically very good with understanding and talking to whoever he spoke to with regards to business, or even just socially. But the difficulty they had was, firstly, the English language. Secondly, rearing a family in the conditions that they were in, which they had no parents or grandparents to assist, and just to get on with life, where they, with their little English that they could speak, they were confronted with Greeks coming into the shop, and the Greeks couldn't speak Italian, the Italians couldn't speak Greek. So people pointed. And so with the limited education they had, they did very well with regards to the entrepreneurial way they tackle their business, and in the only way they knew. Business was different 50, 60 years ago, Joe. Things today are complicated by every rule and law, every department of government that gets involved in making sure that, the health and safety is looked at, is make sure that it's continued, and all the other side things now with regards to bullying at work and things like that. So I see that as very positive for people joining the business, and people coming into our workspace. Those are all positive things from the point of view of health and safety and that sort of thing. So, but it's added a lot of bureaucracy into doing a simple thing in buying goods and selling goods. And then you've got the added situation of lengthening times of freight out of Europe, the Chinese influence, where a lot of things are made there. A lot of people in Europe get their raw material, the cases, the boxes, the tins, the glassware that packs all this gear. And so now during the COVID times, it's getting difficult to manage all this. So the difficulty they had in the early days was hard yards, hard work, and making sure that they could supply what was required to the customer that was growing every day. And today, had my father been alive, I think it would have been hard for him to survive in today's environment, because gone are the handshakes, gone, introduced the phones, gone of the simple things of doing things simply. He had to, in those days, he walked to the bank, he pushed the money over the counter, the guy counted it for you. It was all in cash. MasterCard, credit cards, and things like that just didn't exist.
I mean, so, in terms of your role and contribution in your company at the moment, notwithstanding what you've just said about your dad, do you actually feel there has been some of the innate traits that you brought to the table that are becoming less valuable? Have you felt that in any aspect of the business, or?
Yeah, I think the traits that we've introduced, we basically went to school and had an education. We understood a lot more than our parents did. Maybe not the experience side of it, but we understood now that we were in the gap between today's society and their way of thinking in today's thinking. So, you know, we sit in a bit of a middle position here, and understanding what they went through, how we've got to do the business today. The difficulty we're faced with today is a lot more pressure in an office, a lot more pressure thinking about what we need to do than just the hard work of taking a stock off a truck, putting it in the spot, putting it back on a truck to deliver it, and then getting paid for it at the time when it's due. So those things have changed. They've got, you know, very sharp in how you do things. The introduction of online shopping would never have been something that happened in a day. Now we've fortunately we've transitioned into that. Now we've still got reps on the road, but they take orders online and it's sent to the accounting system online here. Pick slips are produced, orders are prepared, and then deliveries are made. Trouble is today, everybody wants everything yesterday. They're not happy with, you know, it'll arrive in the next couple of days. It's instant. In the days when my father operated, yes, you prepared the order. There was a delivery day to a location. If you got on the truck and you got the delivery, that's the only day you got it. You know, you didn't get it on the Friday if your order was due on the Wednesday, for instance. And so it's introduced a little bit more speediness about how we do things. And we've just had to flow through with that. You know, in today's society, if you want to survive in today's society, you've got to keep up with those changes.
Yeah.
And even at the other end, where the restaurateur will do certain things at the end of the day, he just wants to look at his phone, knows what's in stock, knows what to order, bang, send it through at 11 o'clock, gets ordered, prepared next morning, and you get a delivery the next day. Those are the sort of things that, you know, the speediness of the workplace and the efficiencies of how they've moved into the workspace has happened over the last 5-10 years.
Yeah. So, you know, Albert, when we had a conversation offline prior to this, I was really thinking to myself, this is going to be great. I think you've got a lot of wisdom around matters of succession, and I know that you've had some challenges as well, and you've got some thoughts about that. I just wondered whether you could start with your own plans for succession. I certainly am not trying to push you out of the business, Albert, by any stretch, but I'd like to know, you know, have you thought about succession? You know, what are the challenges for you personally?
This started delving in my mind a bit about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I was struck with cancer. I had that removed, and I started thinking, what is life all about? And I was only 55 then. So that was 15 years ago. And it's been on my mind ever since. Not for the bad side of wanting to get out, but wanting to see the future and where it was going. And as a business, my father expected me to follow him in his business. You know, that's why he was working, why he gave me an education. That's what I've built for you, and that's what you've got to continue. Now, my father died 30 years ago. My mother died 3, but that was where I sit in that middle road of what he wanted. Now, what I want is basically similarly. I've been in this business now for 47 years, and I'm looking at my children who are all educated now, you know, and they've got their own professions. I don't expect them to be here, but one of my girls wanted to join the business. Now she's married, she's got children, and she's a mother of 2 babies. So unfortunately, she can't be involved in the business while she's got littlies like that. But my view is that I'm 70. I believe there's space now for the younger kids coming through. If they do want to continue this business in the conditions that the business is in, the business is getting harder to do anyway. But I want the ability to be on the same page with all our partners, for all our partners to understand that it's time to pass it down. And we're here to consult, to advise, and to help. And that's what we can offer them. But I particularly don't want to be here in this business like I've been for the last 47 years, because at the end of the day, how long's a piece of string? When do you think your retirement should be? When you get sick? I don't think so.
I think that's a really, I mean, I resonate with this a lot. You know, I had my dad who had cancer as well, and he passed. And so the transition was forced in a way. And so there was no choice in that particular matter. And, you know, with an experience like you've had, it kind of opens up your eyes. And so my question is, you know, with that, you understand the importance of it. What do you think holds back owners from actually relinquishing control of their business? What slows the process down, do you think?
In our business, particularly, we've got 4 partners.
Yep.
And that's an immediate slowdown because everybody's got a different idea of what they want to do.
Yes.
Now, the old adage is, and I hear it continually, Joe, is that if I'm not doing this, what am I doing? And I don't want to die tomorrow doing nothing, because the transition seems to be to people that do retire end up doing nothing because they have nothing to do in retirement and become either a burden to themselves, a burden to their wife, or a burden to society. Or that's what they think. That's where they're heading.
It's like a sense of worth and contribution is tied some way into the business only.
It is.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be necessarily tied to it. I love what I do, but I just think it's time. And what I would like is all our partners to sit down and think the same way. Unfortunately, they've all got a different thinking process, and some are a little bit more stubborn than others and think that they can never leave the business because it depends on them. And even things have changed the way we do things, you know, in each part of that we've been given in the part of the business that we look after. So I just think it's more educating within ourselves here to understand that there is a transition period and it can't be left for, you know, another 10 years because I'll be 80 and I would still like to do things while I've still got my health. Because when you go, someone says, "Oh, gee, wasn't he a good worker? Oh, it's a pity he died."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's not the thing I want to hear. I want to hear, yeah, look, he's done all the right things. They've transitioned. They've got their new kids on the block, understand what they're doing. They want to take the business to a different direction. They want to, that's fine. But things have got to change because sometimes what we're stuck with is old ideas as well. You know, and like we've introduced new ideas to our parents, our children or our associated cousins will also have new ideas on how they do things.
So
I think that.
Sorry, Albert. Sorry, keep going.
No, and that's to me is positive.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. So look, I'm hearing a few things here. So I hear this idea of passing on the business to the next generation, which might be family. So do you think part of the issue as well might be that there needs to be family that is not only available, but also competent enough and willing enough and motivated enough and all of that? And is there another opportunity outside of family altogether? Is there some way of being able to engage employees or someone completely outside of the business to be able to?
That's the question at the moment. I think there is.
Yeah.
To my partner, he thinks it's relinquishing control
of what the family has effectively created.
And I think that the family and the children coming through are old enough to understand what they need to do.
Yes.
Yeah, they'll make mistakes.
Yep.
But we made mistakes too.
Yeah.
But we were guided by our parents.
Yep.
Of what they knew and how they knew it. And, you know, sometimes, you know, we go through an education process. We think we know everything. What we don't have is experience. And in those days, experience counted. You know, you could come out of uni with all the degrees you want. You can do your sums in accounting and do all the transfers, journalize and all that sort of thing, but that doesn't necessarily make the dollars or make you a better person on how you do business. So I think the transition from my point is the way I see it wanting to go, but there's a couple of other, partners that don't see it the same way because they still see themselves as key to the business.
But on your side, you mentioned that there's a clear issue, and one of the issues is that sense of worth and contribution tied to the business. What have you done on your side to make that less of an issue? Are there any steps? Are there any things that you have been doing, perhaps even since that event, that health scare that you've been doing to make sure that it's easier for you to detach?
Well, as soon as the next generation have fronted, which was 4 to 5 years ago, I'm making sure there's a lot of things that I do, I'm passing them on. I'm showing others what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've got to put their worth into their ideas on how to do things. And by relinquishing things that I'm doing gives me more time to do other things and more time to take off by coming to work less, but still presenting myself if need be.
What have you been doing? What have you been doing outside of out of work that's been enjoyable? And
I'm a surf lifesaver.
Beautiful.
As a sport, I've done karate.
Mm-hmm.
I walk and run most mornings. I swim. These are my enjoying things in the morning. So I'm a 5 o'clock riser. I do all these activities. I'd like to get back to golf if I've got the opportunity. And also, you know, in the last 20 years, we've been rearing a family. And that's been key to me to make sure that they get on their feet and do what they need to do within their own spheres of their professional careers that they've taken on. And, you know, that's the sort of things, you know, that I quite enjoy. Hobbies, I don't have terribly a lot of hobbies. I'm a collector of you know, articles and whatever, football and things like that, you know. But no, I like photography. So, you know.
See, and I mean, this is the point, and this is why I asked the question. I felt that your comfort or the idea that you could transition into a post-business life was based upon the fact that you were likely, in my mind, not that I knew, were likely to have many interests and many things that could keep you occupied and happy outside of the business. And I think that for some, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but for some, there seemingly is business and then not much else afterwards. And that can be make it more challenging.
And that's what it is. And that's what it is, Joe. You know, and that's a difficulty that we all are going to face.
Yes.
If we don't have or even develop the interest
yes.
that one should have post business.
Yes.
You know, without giving it up altogether.
Absolutely. What about income continuity, Albert? You know, like this idea that, you know, this might be an idea placed in my mind because I have a bias because I'm a financial advisor. But do you think that people that aren't managing their personal financial affairs as well or making poor decisions with their money have a difficult time to see how they could live a life post-business, given that the income might be a bit of a problem for them as well?
I think that's very evident and also in the back of most people's minds, because all I do is listen to people at the moment. You know, they all look at me and say, oh, it's 70, you're still working. What's going on? Haven't you got enough in your super? Right? And that's why you're working, are you? You know, and I'm talking to people that are 65 and now on the verge or have retired, and they've already understood that they've got enough in their super. I mean, you know, without living an outlandish life. I probably am fortunate. Our parents, what they developed, what they bought, and what they passed on, are fortunate enough that there's been a few dollars in the business as well, and we've made some sound investments with regards to properties. So it's, you know, I don't think that I'm going to have an issue when it comes to slowing down. I don't live beyond my means. You know, it's not like as if we all travel in first class aeroplanes and have a boat sitting on the bloody water sort of thing. But that could be introduced later in life, maybe.
Yeah.
But yes, and I think that's half the issue. The issue is that firstly, we don't have enough to do, but I'll certainly work on creating and understand that's required to keep the mind active. And also having an interest in making sure that you've got enough funds to see your life through. And if we've got 15 good years left, if we have 15 good years left, we'll be lucky. So, you know,
and I mean, it seems to me like even, you know, for me looking at my own career and the rest of it, I just don't see the idea that retirement in the sense of just stopping and doing nothing is viable for anyone that's worked in business and has been busy their whole life. Just to switch from one to the other, it just doesn't seem realistic.
And it's not.
It's not.
I don't think it is, and I think I understand that. So I make sure, with understanding that, I'm willing to take on extra things.
Yes.
And for just to let you know, I've taken on extra studies recently.
Right.
Last time I opened a book for study was 50 years ago. Right. Now you laugh, I took on, the company directors course.
Yeah.
And, I thought I studied when I was at uni.
Yeah.
I think I've done more work in this company directors course than I ever did when I was studying at uni.
Yeah.
So, and then 50 years later,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to get into the mode of back into study. And I sit back sometimes during my evenings when I was reading some of this, some of the sections of the course. What the hell am I doing this? What am I doing this? But to me, I found it exciting.
Yes.
Something new.
Yeah.
Something that's very pertinent to what I do.
Mm.
And it's opened up new doors for me in the way I think about business, including the conversation that I've had with James Kostarakis, who introduced me to you, and his thoughts about succession planning in his own business, and where we're all going to want to take it as directors of our own businesses and the businesses that we belong to as directors.
Do you you talked about sort of slowing down from the business point of view and doing other things. Have you ever felt guilty in doing that? And how do you combat those feelings of guilt?
Well, you get told by a lot of people,
Yeah.
stop feeling guilty about what you do.
Yeah.
Stop wanting to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning and last to leave at 5:30 or 5:45 or 6 o'clock. Why are you there? What is it that you have to do that someone else can't do? And you know what? Over the last 3 or 4 years, I'm taking it as if, and especially say like now, I've got this, I can't drive because I've got a sling for 6 weeks.
Shoulder, yep.
So if I've got to leave early, I leave early. Someone else can lock up. I don't have to open up. It's been left to one of the other new developing family members, right? And like we took the reign back 30 years ago, now somebody else is taking the reign. So I'm seeing my transition as like my father was seeing me transition to me, so he can get on. And he was one that didn't do a lot. He loved his garden, but didn't do a lot after he sort of retired. He didn't live long enough after his retirement anyway. Unfortunately, he fell sick. And I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to be faced with tomorrow that someone else tells me that I've got to go and see a doctor about something. It's not a worry that's always at the front of your mind, but it's always a worry for all of us. It's not, no one's going to be excused about any C word that we could be confronted with. And so I'm conscious of this transition, and slowly, it's been hard, Joe, but I've managed to, if I need to come in a little bit later, I'm doing it without the feeling of the guilt that I'm missing out and someone else is saying, why are you running late? They're even telling me here at work, take it easy, come back a little bit later if you want to, leave a little bit early if you have to. I'm getting that as a good vibe for me. If that's what they are telling me, they see comfort in what I'm doing and what they've been able to take on to manage without me being here, without making me feel useless either, because that's the last thing we want to feel. But I think I'm seeing it a little bit clearer, and I'm also trying to manage it.
Does working less as well change the nature of the types of tasks that you do potentially in a positive way?
I think so. I think, it makes you sharper in what you do.
Yeah.
You're also got, I've also developed a book or a file of how to do things.
Yep.
How does Albert do these things? Go to the file, have a look. Oh, that's the process. Okay, so now I'm actually physically showing, and then they go back to it if they have to. Oh, yeah, that's what he meant, right? So I've got all my duties, all my things that I've done, all packed up in a nice little, file, A to Z. And so I feel comfort in that I'm not just walking away and someone said, oh, he didn't show me that. He didn't tell me how to do that. So I've got that ability. And I think by doing that, I feel comforted and I feel confident that whoever's remaining in the position or assisting me, that they are capable of doing it. And walking away knowing that I haven't left the business in the lurch. And that's the guilt thing.
I think this is a very pertinent point around the idea that in our minds as business owners, we have a lot of things that we think innately that we add a lot of value, how we add a lot of value. And I think that's true. But if we can try as best we can to take this innate ability and procedurize it and create processes through the business as much as we possibly can, it can alleviate us. It can move us away from feeling like we have to be there at all times, because someone else could potentially take on some of those duties and those roles ably.
Well, and as well, which was pointed out by my wife, that when my wife really needed me,
yes,
and our children needed us, growing, I dedicated probably more time to the business than I should have given my family. And now, in retrospect, you can't go back. It didn't make our children any worse. They still grew up with good values, because I think their mum and dad gave them good values, especially their mother. I'm very grateful that, my wife's been a very good support for me. But, you do have regrets in those sort of areas. They still love you like a dad, which is fair enough, and that's great. But if I had to go back again, I would dedicate more time. I used to brag, Joe, about how many holidays I still am owed. And now I start to see it as an embarrassment to think you didn't take those holidays when you should have taken them, And to me, I understand that. That's, but the business I thought needed us, really in those days when, we were going through the 80s and 70s where interest rates started hitting 19%. Things were tough in those days. Can you imagine 19%, and what's the interest rate today?
Very low.
Unbelievably, we had different pressures in different ways. So, the business really, it struggled in those days.
I just think, for all business owners out there, they really need to take note of what you've just said there around, looking back at your life and thinking to yourself, well, it's not all about the money. It's actually, you need to have an understanding of, when your family needs more time and taking advantage of it. The only hope that I have, Albert, as well, is that through this pandemic period that people were forced to realize the importance of connection.
And look, our children, I've got one living in Melbourne, one living in the south of Western Australia.
Yeah.
We do get to see them, probably less to my daughter that lives in Melbourne, and she misses her parents and obviously her sisters living in Perth. But yes, it's really highlighted that fact that family is everything, and you've said it. And and I know your caption is it's not all about money, and it isn't all about money, because at the end of the day, I've often said, if you don't have health, you've got nothing. And health, how's health created? Okay, you do some exercise, making sure that you're reasonably fit, but health is in healthy mind as well. Because if you're not healthy there and you deteriorate in your own health, well, then all the money in the world doesn't save you.
It's true.
And good friendship and good family life, that your children still want to see you and and you get along with them. This world and this time that we live in this earth is too short to have any disagreements with either your wife or your children, because that's all you've got at the end, right? And so it's very important. I learned in early in my life that there's two things to keep happy. It's either be happy or be right. And I chose happiness, especially when I'm arguing with my wife. But Joe, I've always got the last word. You know that.
I imagine I'm going to let you have it as well at the end of this podcast.
What it is?
What's that?
Yes, dear.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's sage advice. I one other thing that I really wanted to talk to you about was we mentioned, we've had a conversation offline around the only way that it's possible that owners can get on the same page where they have differing objectives and some conflict is where there is a third party involved. Have you got some thoughts around that?
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm asking a few people.
Yeah.
I think it's the only way to go. But it's making sure that all the partners are comfortable about having a third party, talk to them about the next proceeding or the next 5 years or so. Because if we don't have, because we're all very keyed in what we think as individuals. I'm right, you're right, everyone's right, but nothing's being done about it. And what you need, an independent person pointing out things that you've asked or you've talked about as an independent person to make you think and make everybody else think instead of it coming from me. That's I haven't gone any further than that because that's my next step, and that's where I'll be heading to. So
the step before actually getting an independent person in, which you've obviously been sold on, the idea of getting someone in to have conversations with everyone. The step is
convincing all the partners.
Correct.
That's what we've got to go through to understand all our own positions.
Yes.
And what our future positions are going to be within this business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the key. That's the key.
Yep. Yep.
And look, we've taken on, and we often do in this business over the last 15, 20 years, very good ex-insurance people they've gone into their own retirement, they've sold their business, and they're working for us, collecting money, giving you a bit of advice. And so over the last 15 years, we've had a constant stream of people, as long as they wanted to work here, to bounce things off. We've currently got an ex-bank manager that's very, very knowledgeable and adds a dimension as an outsider on what he sees. And it's brought forward all the time that this is what's missing, so he looks at me and he says, you guys don't talk enough. And it's very evident because we're all proud in what we think. But sometimes even discussing it amongst ourselves sort of brings a bit of aggression and aggravation, right? So sometimes you tend to just do what you need to do for the sake of doing it and get on with life, right? But the third party is going to be the one that will make us all stand up and understand the reasons why we're doing things for the benefit of ourselves and our future and our third generation that should be in the business.
What just to round up, and this has been already very insightful. I wonder whether you could give us a bit of a spiel on what you think leading a family is all about.
A personal family. What it's all about. It's why we've been put here, I think, Joe. Procreation is what makes this world go round. I mean, not everybody thinks the same way, but I think in life you want a partner. In life you want children. You want children to be good, and you want them to emulate what you've done, and then get them to develop their own skills in their own education and their futures and their own lives. So I think we've done our job if they see how my wife and I act towards each other, how we act to them and to them as a group. And we hope that that will be what they pass on to their own husbands and their own children. I think that's the satisfying thing in having a family. Look, it's all got issues. Kids are kids when they're kids. They're forever naughty if they're naughty, but that's all part of growing up and part of life. And I think that's been very satisfying from that point of view. As I said earlier, regretfully, I probably could have taken more holidays with them. I tend to find that we now take holidays and do things with our children, our grandkids, to make up what we didn't do with them.
Yeah, you're not alone. I've heard that before. Yeah.
So that's also pretty satisfying. And the young kids love it too, that they've got a granddad that's young enough to do the things that they can do, do things with them. It's nice to hear your grandchild say, come on, not come and have a kick of footy with me. And you can actually do it without pulling your hamstring.
Well, yeah, I mean, the shoulder's a bit of a problem at the moment, Albert, but I'm sure you'll get back to it. I'm sure you'll get back to it.
It's going to be a slow progress project there.
Yeah. Well, before I round out, the last question, which is the most important, but also the one that most people get stuck on, is what spirit animal you would be if you were a spirit animal of any description, and why?
Well, I don't know. That's a hard one. You should have told me this before. I should have had time.
That's what everyone says.
It would have given me more time to think about it. When you say spirit animal,
yeah, the animal that embodies you the most, the one that you resonate with the most.
well, I don't have the speed of a tiger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a roar of a lion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Joe. This one here, I'll have to come back to you on. And I know that you want to hear it now.
No, that's fine. That's fine. What I want to ask you a follow-up question though. What's your favorite coffee?
Brand name or just the type of coffee?
The type of coffee that you would order.
Oh, just
don't tell me an oat latte or something like that.
Just an espresso.
Yep. So traditional.
And these days, all I hear is, even my wife says things like, "I'll have a weak, skinny, flat white," and I'm going, "What do you want to drink? Just milk, do you?" I mean, why are you drinking? I mean, I'm getting introduced to oat and almond, but not for me.
No, I suspected not.
And I'll tell you what, Joe, the only reason I would have a flat white, for instance, is that a short black literally is 2-second drink. So where's the rest of the conversation?
Yeah, you want to spend a little bit more time, right? You want to spend a little bit more time.
You order a flat white or a cappuccino, so you could stretch the time out and sip. I'm traditionally a tea drinker by early morning, but I will have my couple during the day.
Yeah.
And it's a great icebreaker with people coming into our business, sharing a coffee with people.
Yeah.
And actually making it for them. We've got an in-house machine.
Yeah.
I tear in and out, I fill it up coffee pod and put it in and all that sort of stuff. Not the pods, but actual coffee. And they love to see it. Yeah, it's tradition. It's where I came from.
Well, I mean,
it's my roots.
We're from Melbourne, so we very much appreciate your family and families like yours to introduce that sort of stuff in that when you did. It's perfect. And yeah, look, again, appreciate your time on this episode. I'm sure the family business owner community will really enjoy it, and there's a lot of valuable insights to take from it. So again, thank you for your time.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it, Joe. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much for the invite to be able to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that this one was enjoyable to listen to and there were some moments of value. If you have resonated in any way with the sentiments of this podcast, we would be delighted to direct you to our website, www.itsneveraboutmoney.com.au, for more free resources and education aimed at improving your capacity to make sound financial decisions for the benefit of your family. We wish you every success, however you define it.